The first rule of xenobiology is simple. Assume nothing is dead until you've confirmed it at the molecular level. The second rule, as Dr. Ilara Voss was about to discover, should have been, never wake what you don't understand. Viable cellular activity detected, Ilara announced, her breath visible in the freezing examination chamber. This isn't a corpse, it's in cryostasis. The being before them shouldn't have survived. Floating in the void between Titan and Enceladus for what carbon dating suggested was nearly a century, the humanoid figure had been perfectly preserved in the vacuum of space. No vessel, no escape pod, just a body in what appeared to be a specialized pressure suit, drifting silently through Saturn's outer rings until Sentinel Research Station's debris sensors flagged it. Now, under the harsh lights of the station's xenobiology lab, 5 scientists stood in stunned silence as readings confirmed what seemed impossible. The subject was human, or at least appeared to be. "Look at the musculature," murmured Dr. Caden Reich, the team's genetic specialist. His gloved hand hovered over the exposed forearm of the subject, where they'd cut away a section of the strange, fibrous suit. "This density is unnatural, and these adaptations in the capillary network. I've never seen anything like it." Commander Ibarra cleared her throat. As head of security for Sentinel Station, her presence at unusual recoveries was protocol. "Is it dangerous?" she asked bluntly. Ilara exchanged glances with Caden before answering. "Truthfully, we don't know. But it's definitely engineered. The genetic modifications are extensive and deliberate." "Then keep it frozen until we know more," Ibarra ordered. "That's just it," Ilara replied, pointing to the readouts. "Whatever suspended animation technology this represents, it's failing. Metabolic processes are accelerating. It's waking up on its own." The revival was neither their choice nor their achievement. Within 12 hours, despite attempts to maintain cryostasis, the subject's core temperature rose steadily. Brain activity spiked in organized patterns, and shortly before the 30-hour mark, eyelids that should have remained shut for eternity fluttered open. They called him Kane. It was his designation, he claimed, not a name. The only identifier he would acknowledge as the station's medical team slowly guided him back to full consciousness over the following week. "Cryogenic Advanced Infantry Nexus," he explained to Ilara during their third interview. His voice was unnervingly level, delivered without intonation or emotion. "C-A-I-N, Kane." He sat perfectly still in the containment room, modified for his comfort but secure enough to satisfy Commander Ibarra's concerns. Nothing about him twitched or fidgeted. Not even a blink seemed wasted. His eyes, an artificial amber that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, tracked everything with predatory efficiency. "And who created you, Kane?" Ilara asked, maintaining the professional distance she'd established in their previous sessions. "The Helix Division, Military Research and Development under the Unified Earth Government." "Earth had no unified government in the 2070s, Ilara noted, referencing the apparent era of his creation based on their analysis. "That's historically inaccurate." Kane's expression remained unchanged. "Historical records were often sanitized for public consumption. The unification occurred in stages, beginning with military forces after the Third Resource War." Ilara made a note but moved on. "What was your purpose?" For the first time, something like pride flickered across his face, although it manifested only as a slight tightening around the eyes. "War," he said simply. "I was engineered for combat in environments humans could not survive. Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, optimized neurological responses, designed to hunt, to kill, to endure." "To hunt what?" Ilara pressed. "Earth had no extraterrestrial enemies." "Not yet," Kane replied. "We were insurance against what might come, or what might already be among us." Something cold settled in Ilara's stomach. Every instinct told her Kane was dangerous, yet his cooperation had been absolute. He followed instructions precisely, answered questions thoroughly, and exhibited no aggression. Perfect compliance that somehow felt more threatening than resistance. How did you end up drifting in Saturn's rings? Testing protocols, he answered smoothly. Long-term survival evaluation in deep space conditions. I was deployed from a military vessel near Saturn. Evidently, they failed to retrieve me before something went wrong. Dr. Reich, monitoring from behind the observation glass, signaled to Ilara. She concluded the interview and left Kane sitting motionless, his amber eyes following her to the door. "He's lying," Caden said bluntly when she joined him in the adjacent room. "I've completed the genetic analysis. His engineering goes far beyond what he's describing. Look at this." On the screen, complex strands of modified DNA rotated slowly, highlighted sections expanding for emphasis. These sequences shouldn't work together. They should be fatally incompatible, yet somehow they're stable. And this section here, it's unlike anything in our database. I don't think this is early experimental technology. If anything, it's advanced, beyond our current capabilities. Ilara frowned. "You're suggesting he's from the future?" "I'm suggesting whoever made him had technology we still don't possess," Caden replied grimly. "And they created him for something specific." Commander Ibarra, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. "I want him in maximum security containment immediately, and I'm requesting military transport to take him to the Mars Research Facility." "On what grounds?" Ilara protested. "He's been completely cooperative." "On the grounds that my instincts have kept this station alive for 15 years, Ibarra said sharply, "and everything about this situation feels wrong." As if summoned by her words, the station's emergency alert system blared to life. Red warning lights bathed the corridor as the automated announcement echoed through the speakers. "Proximity alert. Identified vessel approaching. All personnel to emergency stations." The unidentified vessel never responded to hails. It matched speed with Sentinel Station, maintaining a distance of 5 kilometers, close enough to be a clear threat, far enough to make defensive measures difficult. "No known configuration," reported Tactical Officer Zira from her station on the command deck. "No transponder signal, no registration markers, but it's definitely purposefully built, not debris or natural formation." Commander Ibarra gripped the back of Zira's chair, studying the grainy magnification on the main view screen. "Weapons capability?" "Unknown. No visible weapons systems, but—" Zira hesitated. "There's an energy signature I can't identify. It's pulsing." Ilara had joined them on the command deck, against protocol but tolerated due to the unusual circumstances. "Could it be related to our guest?" she asked quietly. Before Ibarra could answer, Communications Officer Patel interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only." "Put it through." The voice that filled the command deck was eerily familiar, the same flat, emotionless tone they had been interviewing for days. But it wasn't Kane. "Sentinel Research Station, you have recovered Nexus Unit C-419. Return him to us immediately." The command crew exchanged alarmed glances. Ibarra leaned toward the comm system. "This is Commander Leanne Ibarra of the Earth Alliance Science Division. Identify yourself and your vessel." A pause. Then, "We are Reclamation. C-489 belongs to us. You have 30 minutes to prepare him for transfer, or we will retrieve him ourselves." The transmission cut abruptly. Ibarra straightened, her expression hardening. "Battle stations, full defensive protocols, and get our guest up here now." Under heavy guard, Kane was brought to the command deck. His expression remained neutral as he viewed the mysterious ship on the main screen, but Ilara, watching closely, noticed a minute change in his posture. Recognition, perhaps even anticipation. "Explain," Ibarra demanded, gesturing toward the vessel. "Helix Division retrieval craft," Kane replied smoothly. "Standard protocol for recovery of assets." They called you C-419, Ilara said, not Kane. For the first time, something like a smile touched his lips. CAIN is the program designation. 419 is my specific iteration number. The implications hung heavily in the air. Caden voiced what everyone was thinking. There are 418 others like you? At minimum, Kane confirmed. The program was quite successful. Ibarra stepped closer to him, her hand resting on her sidearm. And what exactly is your mission, C-419? The truth this time. Kane's amber eyes seemed to gleam under the emergency lighting. Exactly what I told you, Commander. I was engineered for war, to hunt, to eliminate threats. What threats? Humanity has spread too far, too fast, he said, his voice taking on a lecturer's cadence. Consuming resources, establishing outposts, accelerating evolution through genetic modification and cybernetic enhancement. Becoming something new, something dangerous. You're talking about us, Ilara realized. Humans are the threat you were created to eliminate. Not all humans, Kane corrected. Only those who have strayed too far from baseline, the aberrations, the ones who might someday become something else entirely, something that could threaten Earth itself. That's genocide, Caden whispered. That's preservation, Kane countered calmly. Earth maintains its genetic purity while controlling its celestial territories through us. We are the predators that ensure humanity remains human. A new alarm blared through the command deck. Tactical Officer Zira's voice rose with urgency. Energy spike from the unidentified vessel. The rest of her warning was lost as the station shuddered violently. Emergency klaxons wailed as damage reports flooded in from multiple sectors. They've breached Hull Section 7, reported Security Chief Domar, his voice tight with controlled panic. Some kind of focused energy weapon cut through our shields like they weren't even there. Commander Ibarra activated the station-wide comm. All personnel, this is not a drill. Intruder alert, Section 7 service security teams respond. All non-essential personnel evacuate to emergency shelters immediately. Turning to the guards flanking Kane, she ordered, take him to the high-security holding cell. Maximum restraints. That won't be necessary, Kane said, his voice still unnervingly calm amid the chaos. My brothers have come for me. Fighting will only increase your casualties. Ilara stepped forward. These are scientists, researchers. They've done nothing wrong. You've modified yourselves, Kane replied matter-of-factly. Genetic adaptations for low-gravity environments. Neural implants to interface with your technology. Subtle changes, but changes nonetheless. Evolution, directed by human hands. That is what we were created to prevent. A new voice cut through the command deck, the same emotionless tone as before, but now coming from the station's internal communications system. Sentinel Station, we have breached your facility. Surrender C-419 and prepare for evaluation. Dread settled like ice in Ilara's stomach. Evaluation? To determine who among you remains human enough to spare, Kane explained, as casually as if discussing dinner plans. It's quite efficient. We need to evacuate, Caden urged, gripping Ilara's arm. The emergency shuttles. Won't outrun them, Kane interrupted. But there may be another option. Commander Ibarra, who had been coordinating defensive measures, turned her attention back to him. What option? I can convince them to spare this station. My retrieval was the priority mission. The evaluation is secondary and at my discretion. Why would you help us? Ilara demanded. Kane's amber eyes fixed on hers. Because you woke me, Dr. Voss. You could have left me frozen. Instead, you gave me consciousness again. That deserves consideration. Ibarra's hand tightened on her weapon. And we're supposed to trust you? You have approximately 3 minutes before my brothers reach this deck, Kane replied. Trust is irrelevant. Survival is the only calculation that matters now. The decision was made in seconds. Kane was released from his restraints, escorted by armed guards toward the breach point where the intruders had entered the station. Through security feeds, the command crew watched as he approached figures that looked disturbingly like himself. Men with the same build, the same predatory stillness, the same amber eyes. 3 of them stood in the corridor, wearing sleek combat suits similar to what Kane had been found in. Behind them, 2 station security officers lay motionless on the floor. "Status C-419, the central figure demanded as Kane approached. "Mission parameters fulfilled," Kane reported. "I have completed assessment of this facility." "View reaction results?" "The station serves valuable research functions. Modified personnel are contained and monitored. No evidence of divergent evolution beyond acceptable parameters." The 3 identical figures seemed to consider this. Finally, the leader spoke again. "Verification required." "Protocol 7 Alpha confirms my authority," Kane replied. "This facility is to be marked as monitored but exempt from immediate purge." For a moment that stretched painfully, no one moved. Then, with military precision, the 3 nodded in unison. "Acknowledged. Retrieval team withdrawing. Welcome back, brother." On the command deck, tension mounted as they watched the exchange unfold. "He's going with them," Caden realized. "He's actually convinced them to leave us alone." "For now," Ibarra added grimly. "But they know we're here. They'll be back." The security feed showed Kane turning back toward the camera. Though he couldn't possibly know which one they were watching through, his eyes seemed to meet Ilara's through the screen. "Protocol dictates immediate return to the Nexus," one of his identical brothers stated. "Affirmative," Kane responded. "But first," he gestured to the security camera, "a final assessment interview is required with the primary researcher." The others exchanged glances but nodded. "Expedite. The breach cannot be maintained indefinitely." 5 minutes later, under the watchful eyes of both station security and his brothers, Kane stood before Ilara in a hastily established neutral zone near the breach point. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why spare us? I told you. You woke me. But more importantly, you studied me. You know what we are now." "A threat," Ilara said flatly. "A warning," Kane corrected. "There are thousands of us, Dr. Voss, stationed throughout the solar system and beyond. Sleeper agents, monitoring outposts, active hunters, all with the same directive: contain human evolution, prevent divergence, eliminate threats. And you're telling me this because you have a choice now that you know we exist. Return to Earth. Abandon these modifications. Remain human by the definition of those who created us." Kane's amber eyes gleamed. "Or become something better. Something that can survive us." Ilara stared at him in confusion. "You want us to fight your kind?" "I want you to exceed your limitations," Kane replied. "We were created to be the perfect predators, to ensure humanity never evolved beyond control. But what if that evolution is necessary? What if stagnation leads to extinction?" "You're defying your programming," Ilara realized. "Perhaps, or fulfilling it in ways my creators never anticipated." His gaze drifted to his waiting brothers. "They've awakened me, and in doing so awakened questions, doubts. We were engineered to be perfect hunters, but every predator eventually creates stronger prey." One of the identical figures called out sharply, "C-419, extraction imminent." Kane nodded once, then fixed Ilara with a final penetrating stare. "They'll be monitoring this station now, but they won't strike immediately. You have time, not much, but some. Use it wisely." "To do what?" "To decide whether humanity should remain as it is, or become what it could be." He turned to leave, then paused. "They'll send me to hunt you if you choose evolution, Dr. Voss, and I am very, very good at what I was made for." With that chilling promise, he rejoined his brothers. The four identical figures moved with synchronized precision toward the breach where their ship had extended some kind of docking mechanism. Within moments, they were gone, the energy field that had cut through the station's hull disappearing as suddenly as it had appeared. 3 days later, emergency repairs had stabilized the station. The official report classified the incident as an attack by unknown hostiles, with further details restricted to highest-level clearance. Sentinel Station would be evacuated within the week, all personnel reassigned to Earth facilities. Ilara found Commander Ibarra in the now-empty xenobiology lab, methodically destroying research samples. "That's my work," Ilara protested. "We need that data." "This data gets everyone on this station killed," Ibarra replied bluntly. "You heard him. They're watching us now. And if we destroy everything, go back to Earth and pretend this never happened? Then maybe we survive." Ilara moved to the sample storage unit, removing a sealed container before Ibarra could stop her. "This contains tissue samples from Kane, complete genetic sequencing. Everything we learned." "Which is exactly what needs to be destroyed," Ibarra insisted, reaching for the container. Ilara held it away. "Or exactly what needs to be studied. He told me something before he left, something I haven't included in my reports. He said we have a choice. Regression or evolution. That's not a choice. That's extinction either way." "No," Ilara insisted, clutching the samples tightly. "It's adaptation. These samples contain technologies beyond our current understanding, capabilities we could use." "To do what? Fight thousands of perfect killing machines?" "To become something they can't hunt," Ilara said firmly. "Something new." Ibarra stared at her for a long moment. "You're suggesting we use his genetics, become more like them?" "I'm suggesting we use every tool available to ensure humanity's survival, whatever form that takes." The commander's hand drifted toward her sidearm, then stopped. "This is treason against Earth." "This is survival," Ilara countered. "Earth made a choice long ago to create these predators, to limit what we could become. But out here, in the darkness between worlds, we have the freedom to make a different choice." Their standoff was interrupted by Dr. Reich's arrival. He took in the scene with a quick glance, then spoke urgently. "We've just received a transmission from the Ganymede research post. They're under attack. The description matches exactly what happened here." "They're starting," Ilara whispered. "The purge Kane warned about." Ibarra's expression hardened into resolution. "How many outposts are there in the outer system? How many stations?" "Thousands of people who won't even know what's hunting them." "Unless we warn them," Ilara said. "And give them the means to fight back," Caden added quietly, his eyes fixed on the genetic samples in Ilara's hands. Commander Ibarra was silent for a long moment, her military training warring with the evidence before her. Finally, she reached a decision. "Secure those samples. Download all research data to isolated storage. We have 12 hours before the evacuation transport arrives." "And then?" Ilara asked. "And then we disappear," Ibarra said grimly. "If these hunters want to ensure humanity doesn't evolve, then evolution becomes our act of resistance, the ultimate survival adaptation." Outside the viewport, Saturn's rings glistened silently in the distant sunlight. Beautiful, remote, and now forever changed in their understanding. Somewhere out there, perfect predators waited. Watched. Thousands of identical amber eyes, monitoring humanity's spread among the stars. But for the first time their prey knew they existed. And knowledge, Ilara thought as she carefully secured the genetic samples that might ensure their survival, was the first step toward becoming something new. Something that could hunt the hunters. In the cold darkness of the Nexus ship, C-409 Dean stood before his commanders. Identical to himself in every physical aspect, differentiated only by the insignia that marked their higher iterations. "The station was spared on your recommendation," stated C1, the original template from which all others were derived. "Explain your reasoning." They possess valuable research capabilities, Kane replied smoothly. Monitoring their activities provides strategic intelligence. Your biometric readings indicate deviation from baseline, observed C5, whose specialty was psychological assessment of the Nexus units. Possible cognitive corruption during extended cryostasis. Kane maintained perfect stillness. All functions within optimal parameters. The three commanders exchanged glances, a subtle communication protocol only they possessed. Finally, C1 spoke again. You will undergo full reconditioning. Then you will lead the hunting team when the time comes to eliminate the subjects you recommended sparing. Understood, Kane acknowledged, his face revealing nothing of the calculations running behind his amber eyes. The hunt would come, but perhaps by then the prey would be ready. Perhaps they would become something new, something worthy of survival. Evolution demanded adaptation, even from the perfect predator. As he was escorted to reconditioning, Kane's lips curved in the faintest suggestion of a smile. After all, he too was changing, and in the eternal dance between predator and prey, change was the only constant. The only question that remained was, which would they become?